Good evening. This is really a wonderful occasion, and one that we're very, very proud to provide for the students and for the family of the students. It's well to take note of the fact that this is the third such event in the over 50-year history of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And one might reasonably ask, and if you didn't, I'd tell you anyhow, some of the reasons that we haven't had them, didn't have this ceremony for the first 50 years of the school. We are all very much involved in symbols, and some folks felt that putting on a white coat, in fact putting on any uniform, was a way to actually separate physicians and students from the patients they were caring for. So separation and distancing oneself is an interesting phenomenon, and it has definitely pros and cons. A second, I guess, Chuck, you'd like me to do this, and I will. A second issue involved in the distancing is that in the past, and this outfit is called a Doctor of the Plague costume, as it will, a costume now, but actually the kind of clothes that doctors in the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th century wore to protect themselves from patients with the plague. So it wasn't a white coat at that time, but it was definitely a way of saying, I'm the doctor, you're the patient, and although I'm watching you die, I really don't want to get all that close to you. Now, I happen to be an infectious disease physician, so I actually go nowhere without my Doctor of the Plague mask. The British, in their wisdom, have now decided that white coats, particularly those on medical students, can form a nidus of infection, spreading infection from one patient to another. And you can see in the blue, white coats of medical students are more likely to be bacteriologically contaminated at points of frequent contact, such as the sleeves and pockets. A significant proportion of students only laundered their coats occasionally. I would maintain that a significant proportion of students never launder their coats. And the student's white coat is therefore, they say, a potential source of cross-infection. Actually, I think it probably is an actual source of cross-infection. And some hospitals in Britain have now mandated that people not wear white coats, wear only short-sleeved shirts, and hopefully wash their hands and arms anyhow. But I really believe that symbols are important, and I've shown the students both sides of myself. The one on your left, the Senior Associate Dean for Students. The one on the right, still the Senior Associate Dean for Students. But as I told the students in orientation, you would be unlikely to introduce me to your parents in this garb, so that when around patients, it is in fact worthwhile looking professional. Kidding aside, the white coat, the garb of the doctor, the symbols of a doctor have often been misused. This is entitled Selling with a White Coat, and it's a collection of advertisements in which the symbol, the trust, the implicit and explicit trust that one puts in physicians was used to sell something that we now know is perhaps the single most environmentally deleterious thing you can do, your own environment, that is, and that's smoke cigarettes. So more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. The English is actually bad if you think about it. But and here, 20,679 physicians say Luckies are less irritating. Of course, 20,680 physicians say they were more irritating, but that's advertising for you. And not only is it toasted, but you are toasted if you smoke those cigarettes. So at the end of World War II, after Rosie the Riveter had proven that she was just as good a worker as men, women began to be admitted to medical schools in slightly larger numbers. And here it's equal opportunity bad advertising. So here it's a woman physician telling you that Camels are good for your T-zone, whatever your T-zone is. So that's the distant past, the plague era and the 40s and so. when doctors were being used to tout cigarettes, but just in the last year or two, this ad was very, very commonly seen on television. It's a fellow named Robert Jarvik, and he's probably a genius. He invented an artificial heart. And you can see here that he's wearing a white coat. He's wearing a white coat over an open collar, so it's a little bit suspect. Well, in fact, Dr. Jarvik is not a licensed physician, and therefore should not be touting Lipitor or any other statin as a good drug for you. And a lot of physicians complained about this, and the ad was subsequently withdrawn. All of that is kind of messy, but this is more than messy. So we all are aware that there were Nazi doctors, that those Nazi doctors practiced pseudo-medicine and pseudoscience in the name of being physicians, and with all of the appurtenances and privileges that physicians get, they did some really horrible things. Physicians measured eye size and eye color as a way of determining race and ethnicity. And in general, the medical profession in Germany did not distinguish itself in any positive way. Certainly distinguished itself, but not in any positive way. More recently, this fellow, Radovan Karadzic, purportedly one of the world's worst criminals in terms of terrible things done in Serbo-Croatian conflicts, is a board-certified psychiatrist and masqueraded as an alternative medicine physician for many years, eluding capture in that guise, and was just tracked down and captured last year. So we're getting into very, very recent use of the medical profession and the trappings of the medical profession to hide some really horrible things. Even more recently, physicians were involved in certifying that prisoners at Guantanamo were in good enough health to sustain waterboarding and other nefarious techniques of torture and near torture, and again, not distinguishing themselves as physicians and not caring more about the patient than about other societal pressures. So all of these things need to be taken into account when donning the white coat. And so when you do don your white coat, try and leave your ego behind. Just for those of you in the last rows, just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you can use the carpool lane by yourself. And he admits, but officer, my ego is so large it counts as a second passenger. So leave your ego behind. Here's the white coat. And you can see that, and you will no doubt do as soon as you get yours, you will fill the pockets with all sorts of goodies. Books to tell you what to do, a stethoscope, and one time we'll actually teach you which end of it to put in your ears. It is hoped your ID card will adorn your white coat, and in the top pocket, pens, pencils, flashlights, tongue depressors, and other good things, hopefully not a package of cigarettes. But while you are loading up your white coat, the pockets of your white coat with all of these other attributes of your growing profession and professionalism, it's really important to look where that seam is between the buttons and the other side of the coat, and make sure that you put in that area, namely the inside of the coat, the kind of physician that you and your families and all of us who are trying to help you through this time hope you'll be. A compassionate physician, a physician with integrity, and a physician who, above all else, puts his or her patient. So, just as some of us with X and Y chromosomes started out life not with long pants but with short pants, you are actually going to start out life with a short white coat. So you don't have to worry about anything that goes on in the knee area. You can, I wouldn't suggest that you go on the wards with your white coat and your knees exposed, but just as this little fella grew into his long pants, you will grow into your white coat. So thank you very much.